So good. It's afternoon here in Nigeria. I know we have people from different parts of Africa. I know some people are here from Ghana. I also know that we might have a couple of people from Kenya and a couple of other locations. So it doesn't matter where it is that you're seated. Good day to you. It's our pleasure to indeed have you on this particular webinar. Yesterday, we had a different one where we were talking about the new ISO standard for Sustainable Development Goals 53001. That's what we had yesterday, and it was a brilliant session. And we also know that today is going to be beautiful. We also have Mrs. Aisha Garba here on the call. Mrs. Aisha, good afternoon. If you're in Nigeria, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
How are you, ma?
I'm very well, delighted to be here.
It's indeed our pleasure to have you. It's like having the president or something close being on the call, so the Senate leader or something along those lines as it is. So thank you very much for being here as it is. I welcome you, right? So I will kick off this with my the introduction on my slide and the things we do. Then I will bring you up. Does that work? Okay. No, you're muted.
Great.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, ma. All right, for everybody that is here, so can you go to the chat room, everybody, and just tell me what exactly are your expectations? Do you have any expectations for this session? Is this just time of work? Everybody in the chat room, just tell me what are you hoping to get out of this? I never knew until about was it 4 years ago thereabout that was the year after COVID that there are actually a couple of ISO standards around human resources. It was around the COVID year. I know that yes, it was that COVID year around that the client said, could we do something specifically around the ISO standards? So everybody in the chat room, can I hear from you, please, uh, so that we can also just get an idea of your expectations. Is the chat room working on your side? From my side, it is saying having trouble loading. Anybody? Orolua, is the chat room working from your side? Oyi, is the chat
No,
room
sir,
working?
it's not working from my side.
There's something that okay, good. Can I have one or two people just tell us, please? Can you just switch on your mic and just tell me if you've got any specific expectation from this session? I'll just take one or two very quickly. Anybody? 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 Any practicing HR professional that has got any specific expectation? Paulina, do you have any expectations? Ola Inka, any expectations? Treasure, any other expectations? Anybody at all? Can you just switch on your mic? Because we seem to be having some trouble with the chat room. Can you just switch on your mic and just share with me? Anybody? Quickly. Anybody? Can I get at least one person? If anyone.
Good afternoon.
Good, brilliant. Thank you for bailing me out. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. So for me, I think that having worked a bit on 9001, worked on the implementation process with my organization, I think I'm just very curious as to what what ISO says about the HR, what the HR standards in with regards to ISO is about. And of course, I'm also looking forward to implementing it in my organization soon. So that's why I'm here.
Brilliant. Wow. That tells us that tells us quite a bit. Can I have one more person? Anybody? Can I have one more person? Anybody? Anybody? Please go ahead and speak, please.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for this session. Yes. Just like as the first caller said, I also want to have an idea about to start.
Okay. I think your mic might have gone off. Or your internet or something. Okay, I'm sure he'll come back. Okay, I'm sure he'll come back. Any other person? Anybody? Can I take one more and I quickly go into my session? I want to do my session clockwork in 20 minutes. Any other person?
I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to add something.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Please,
So,
yes, I can hear you.
okay, so I believe everyone has had to deal with HR, and I mean everyone's working, so they would have had to deal with HR. So I'm just really excited about what this standard is about and how it's going to like bring structure into the field of human relations. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure we get a decent idea, hopefully a representation of the thoughts and the opinion and the expectations of everybody that is on the call. Let me quickly go through my presentation so that we can have more than enough time. I want to save some of my time so that I can add it to Mrs. Aisha's time. We get the opportunity to have someone like her on the call, then it's a big deal as it is. So let me quickly go through my slides so that I can get out of the way and I can allow her do justice to this. I'll quickly and I'll share my slides with you, so it's not a problem as it is. I'll share my slides with you. Please, yeah, there you go. I hope you can see my screen, everybody. Can you see my screen? Anybody? Anybody? Can you see my
Yes, I
screen?
can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes, we can, sir.
Brilliant. So I'm Dr. Orlando Odejide, and I work for A4S. And we're a consulting firm. We provide advisory services across audit and advisory services. And that's what brought me here. Somebody called me that can I audit the implementation, an international organization brought me in that can I audit the implementation of the 414 standard, and that's how I got in specifically into the ISO side. So our organization, we provide audit and advisory services. We work across the whole of Africa, as at not the 50 something countries, but at least about 7 or 8 countries across Africa as at today, and we're 9001 certified organization. ISO standards is what we do primarily in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening across the entire organization of 30, 40 of us. ISO standards is really what it is that we do. And as I said before, I'm going to get Mrs. Aisha to come on the call. You can go check out on LinkedIn. I couldn't even pick her entire profile. If I want to, I might spend the whole of 15, 20 minutes trying to read her profile. So I'm not going to go there at all. I'm not even going to make an attempt. So please go online, follow her. She's definitely an international thought leader in this particular area of work. And that's why we have her here. And I'm sure all of us, we're going to get a lot of value from her being here. And once again, we're grateful to her for agreeing to come to do this with us today. I'll move on very quickly. This is probably the most important slide as it is. There are 15. I don't know why is the okay. There are about 15 of them. I think there are 15 of them that I have in terms of the ISO standards. There's a final one, which is the 402. There's the 402 standard. And that 402 standard, they started the work on it, which is really meant to be the requirements document. So a lot of people don't know about this at all, everybody. So, I mean, I'm sure people don't even know that this breadth of standards exists from ISO. Like look at the entire list here, from why and how organizations can have a knowledge management system, right, to key metrics when it comes to OKRs and performance indicators for human resources, to clear guidelines when it comes to recruitment. And even if you're doing what we can say, your employment being aligned to SDG, equality, gender equality, and other types of equalities as it is. So whether you're doing what we can term as sustainable HR, all the way to things like cost per hire, how much does it cost you to hire people? Do you have a budget for your hiring? When do you go past the budget? When is it that you don't go past the budget? And also when it comes to, I mean, so with the times that I've had to do this for a couple of organizations where I've had to audit them, I've had to look at 408, 409, because people will typically not just work on the 30414, which is really what it is, that is the crux of what we're looking at today. So organizations will combine some of these standards. They'll put them together as part of the work that they're doing in human resources. But you can see that it's a lot, from the quality of hire to the impact of hire, all the way to how you plan workforce and guidelines when it even comes to human governance. The entire HR industry, a lot of people, and I've spoken to people who have 100 years of experience. It permits me to exaggerate, right? I've spoken to people who have 100 years of HR experience, and they actually are unfamiliar with the things that ISO has got. So they're all SHRM, they are CIPD of the UK, they're CIPM in Nigeria, but they're just not familiar with the things with the things ISO standard has got. So you should go out of here. If you get nothing out of this session today, at least for my session, you should go out of here knowing that there are many ISO standards that underpin human resources. A lot of them will give you a lot of guidance in terms of what you should be doing. I mean, recently, it was last year, somebody called me around number 12. You know, so a lot of people are doing things around DEI, and I had to come to review and audit. I spend a lot of my time and doing the audits as it sees. So not so much as doing the consultation or the implementation, but doing the external review, especially geared towards some kind of international attestation or certification. That's the focus for us. So we're primarily an ISO audit firm. So I had to come to review the organization in terms of the DEI. And if you heard on the news this morning, President Trump said is diversity and equity and inclusion that has caused them to have a plane crash. I mean, President Trump, you can expect all sorts of things from him, right? So there are also many things that a lot of people don't know about the last two also. You know, the one around learning and development, and also metrics for learning and development. And as an organization, we have our own HR framework. This we built, custom built. You'll see it on my screen. It's to my right. So we use this also to review organizations in terms of how well they're doing HR, and we also map them to international standards that I have listed here. So I mean, this for me this is the big slide for me. Like, everybody should go away from here knowing that there are a lot of ISO standards around human resources, and you can support your organization, you can support your career, you can support your profession with the guidance that comes from a lot of these, so that these standards, so that you're able to speak to your audiences about the objective things you've done relative to human resources in your own organization. This is we've got our own framework where we've written specific things. So we will review an organization relative to these 20 things, and we'll benchmark the organization against the ISO standards that are available for human resources. And we've done this for quite a number of organizations, and it's always very interesting to do this engagement in itself. I won't bore you too much about our organization. We do many things for different organizations. We also have about 5 companies within the group. Within the group, we're about 120 full-time people out of Lagos, out of Accra, out of Port Harcourt, and Nairobi, and also in Abuja as it is. So yeah, pretty much these are the kinds of things that we do as an organization. Once again, you can check on our website, you can follow us on social media, and you see various things that we do for different organizations. Yesterday, we did something on sustainable development goals. Next month, the month of February, we're going to be doing something. We have a paid training on corporate social responsibility, and we also have a webinar like this on environment, social, and governance. As I said, we're an ISO company. That's who we are. That's what we do. That's our specialization as it is. Okay, we've got many clients in different places. I mean, we serve more than 100 clients every year from different places, from different backgrounds. A lot of banks in Nigeria and in Ghana, a lot of fintechs in different locations, including Kenya, and that's what it is that we do. So I will share my slide with you. I won't bore you with the details. I mean, it's good to also even lay your hands on something like this, which is like the document that talks about the vocabulary that you should embark upon. Because what I've seen is that people will benchmark against something that is coming from SHRM, and I used to do that, or PHRI, and I used to do that. But nothing is as good as benchmarking them against international standards, and you can't even receive a certificate that says that somebody has come to attest to your own organization if it's relative to those things. But for ISO standard, just like our organization has been attested to by an external entity relative to 9001, you can get a similar type certificate for your own organization. We audit for this organization and another one relative to this particular standard. You can get the similitude of the certificate of registration as it is. So I've talked about all the slides in here. I will not bore you trying to go through them. This is the other one that I said that they started work on it, but then they recalled it, which is meant to be for requirements. They also had started work on this one, but they recalled it. So there's no full requirement. So you can't really have a management system type accreditation or certification as at today, but you can have some attestations, and I'll show you something along those lines. So this is what Mrs. Aisha is going to be talking to us about. She's going to be talking to us about the reporting side of these things, the various metrics and approaches, and I'm sure she's going to bring a lot of our own experience to bear in terms of why organizations should be doing this, how they do it, and things like how they should be doing it. But we can help the organization achieve something like this, where your organization, somebody's been your consultant, they've done quite a bit for you, and then you can get some kind of certificate of registration with regards to human resource reporting in your own organization. Lastly, also, I mean, I worked on this for somebody because, in the modern day, mental health is a big deal. I don't know whether it's Gen Z people that are making mental health more of a big deal, but yet everybody's talking about mental health. So this particular standard is becoming a big standard with regards to mental health in the workplace. While it's under health and safety, human resource practitioners need to be very aware of this, and they need to take this into consideration. So you can go look at ISO 45003, which talks about the psychological health and safety at work when it comes to psychological risk and especially mental health. There is even an ISO, if you look in here, there's a beautiful article. You can go online and you should find it there, everybody. The one that talks about mental health in the workplace. So if you type ISO for mental health in the workplace, it should take you to this particular article, and it's a brilliant article that you might want to really read and take into consideration. Also, there's another one on the diversity, equity, and inclusion and power difference at work. It's also something brilliant that I think you should read. So you should go on the ISO website. Some of these articles are free for you that you're an HR professional, for you to know about these things and to take and also to take these things into keen consideration with the work that you do. As I said, I will share this slide with you. I don't want to have to go through all this because we've got Mrs. Aisha on the call, and I really definitely want her to have more than enough time to share our thoughts and to share our opinion. I can come back and I can then have further conversation with everybody in terms of what I think your organization should be doing to improve the maturity of human resource in your own organization. So once again, thank you very much, everybody, with a huge round of applause. I'll come back on this call. I want to even, I'm really interested in listening to her. I'd rather listen to her than have me speak on a day like this. So everybody, I hope you're following her already on LinkedIn with a huge round of applause. And since we're struggling in the chat room, please, I'll allow you, or maybe I'll do the clapping on your behalf as the T. So please welcome with me. This is Aisha Garba. Thank you very much, madam, for being here. And I hand it all over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Orlando, and thank you for every person present today. And I will just take it up from where Dr. Orlando mentioned that as professionals, we actually are oblivious to the number of ISO HR standards out there. There are actually more than 15. They're double that number. And more often than not, we tend to run to some sort of frameworks or metrics, either SHRM, CIPD, and the other professional bodies. Granted, they are, robust in the frameworks they provide. They are very dynamic, and a lot of research and work would have gone into it. But when you do compare it to an ISO standard, I mean, it's a global standard, it's an international standard. So we're going to dive into, the world of ISO 30414. But before we embark on that journey, I will share my slides and speak to, the development of ISO 30414, its significance, its relevance, and highlight an example, of its application so that you see how it can help you as HR professionals in your work. So just give me a second. Let me just project my slide. Okay, I seem to be having so many things open. Just bear with me. Just close that. Okay, let's share again. Yeah, I've got it now. Please do confirm that you can see my slides.
Yes, I can. Your slide, HR Success with ISO 30414.
Perfect. Okay, so let me just bring that up closer and switch it to slide mode. So this is the topic that we're discussing, and Dr. Orlando has done a great introduction to everything that relates to this very special standard. It's unique. It's the first of its kind. The only one of its kind is quite distinct. It's quite unique. And as HR professionals, we struggle with reporting a lot. And this is one standard that provides us with that ability, that framework, that guideline, on internal and external reporting. So, of course, the objectives of the webinar, he has already shared that. The background, he's provided that, shared some of the other ISO HR standards and all of that. So we'll go into that. So yeah, that's me. I'm on LinkedIn, so just, you can go there and have a look and connect. That's a QR code. You can scan that now and it can take you to my LinkedIn page. So, so that we don't delay further, I will just show you the TOC. So we're going to do a little ice breaking and snow making. So we're going to meet the snowman, and then we'll go through the various contents in this slide. We'll talk about an overview of an ISO organization, as it were, what it does and all of that. I find that it's very relevant, to bring that up sometimes so that we bring to light. I can hear some background.
Can you help us mute? Can you help us mute if you're not asking either a question, please mute your mic, please, right? Except you're speaking directly to her, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So there's quite a lot. We'll go through all of this, okay? So yes. Now, I need you to scan the QR code that you can see on the screen. I'll show you. Here it is. You can scan it with any of your devices next to you, or you can just type ahaslides.com/GIH9E. I'll give you just 10 seconds to do that. So, I mean, if everybody can, get to it, that's fine. And if we have as many people as we can, it's still great. We just want to break the ice. Oh, you can't? Oh.
See your screen, Mom.
Can you see the QR code?
No.
Is it showing?
No.
Well,
the QR code is showing on my side. I don't know. I'm
yes, I
saying
can see
waiting for
the
players
screen
to
as
join.
well.
Yeah, the QR code is
Okay.
showing on my side.
It's up now. It's up
Okay.
now. It's up.
Hey, someone is in. Sandy Coco. Fantastic. Samuel, fantastic. Can we have more? So I'll just give like maybe 15 seconds, I'll count in Hausa. So for those of you that can listen to what I'm saying, biyu, uku, hudu, biyar, shida, bakwai, takwas, tara, goma, sha ɗaya, sha biyu, sha uku, sha hudu, sha biyar. Okay, so how many do we have? We have 12 players. Fantastic. So, well, we're going to start, okay? And we want to just break the ice and just build a snowman, okay? And we will get started now. And for those of you that can still join, great. But we'll just start with this set of people that have joined. So here you go. If you have your device, you can play on that or open another tab or web browser and just type in the URL. Keyboard. That was the answer. Let's see. So who's leading? I hope it's, oh, Marshmallow. Wow. D. Oing. Oh my goodness. Bravo. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Okay, so we'll move to the next one. So in one word, describe your biggest HR challenge. So I just needed us to break the ice. So now we're going to build the snowman. So we want to know what are those HR challenges? And it's for you to just say it in one word and we can, and then we can show you how standards like ISO 30414 can help you with your challenge. Great. Any more? Reporting, HR analytics, reporting, measurement, favoritism. Talk about DI, DNI, management training, professionalism, reporting, HR analytics, compliance, engaging, recruitment, stressful. Oh, HR is a calling, so I can imagine the stress and the baggage that it comes with, but you are blessed to be an HR professional, okay? It's not everybody that can do it. So for the person that indicated stressful, I totally feel you. It does feel stressful, let's be frank. But guess what? That's why we're here. We're having such webinars, such fora to engage, to connect, to learn from one another, to find out what's trending, what we can do differently, and how we can, be better at our work, be more relevant in what we do, and have a voice, in the boardroom and even with management and, make an impact. Right. So time's up. And I can see that a lot of what you have provided has to do with analytics, reporting, recruitment, reporting, compliance, engaging, so much. That's the beauty of ISO 30414. It has 11 human capital areas, that you can relate with and provide reports that can give that insight for key stakeholders, internal stakeholders to take key decisions. So we'll move on now to the main agenda of the day, unlocking HR success with ISO 30414. So sorry. Right. So like I said, you're already familiar with this, but I just find it useful to sometimes just refresh our memories of what is ISO, okay? We've talked about how, being HR professionals, we're related with other organizational professional bodies, but it's also important for us to really appreciate ISO, how, it is helping the world and even the world of HR. So, I mean, it's just a reminder. I won't delve too much into this so that we can get to the meat. What is an international standard? Most of us know what it is, but like I said, I just want to remind us, it's a document that contains key information of best practices, leading practices, and the best way of doing things. ISO 30414, ISO 9001, and all the ISO standards that you know of have that common framework, that common way of doing things that speaks to the sector, speaks to the industry, speaks to its usefulness for what it's trying to address. Okay, so its significance is massive. It's about safety, it's about reliability, it's about high quality. All ISO standards have that, including ISO 30414, the HR standards. Okay, so they're all guided by the ISO way. It's inclusive, it's value driven, it's independent, can do, and it's what? Global. So the fact that it's an international standard, we can actually use it here, in our offices, in our workplace. So irrespective of where you are in the world and the kind of HR professional work that you're doing, irrespective of the organization, whether it's manufacturing, it's hospitality, it's banking, name it, it's consulting, name it, it can work for you. All ISO standards are built that way, are designed that way. Ditto ISO 30414. Okay, so quick stats. It's been around for a while, since 1947, and so many things around the timelines and then the member representation. So of course, Nigeria is probably one of the member countries. That's through Standards Organization of Nigeria, and there are over 800 technical committees and subcommittees that are, responsible for providing those standards, of which ISO 30414 is. So this is how it works. How does ISO work? It just gives you an idea. There are three main groups of people that come together: the experts, the members, and the secretariats. They come together, and provide this rigorous approach to how each and every ISO standard is developed. Whether it's 9001, whether it's ISO 30414, name it, 30415, all the standards that you can imagine, they go through this same kind of standard. So this is a global reach. Like I said, Nigeria is a member. I just want us to appreciate, from the global perspective, what ISO is and how, it's relevant in Nigeria. And SON is a member, and is a full member. So a lot of our ISO standards, Nigeria is well represented. So its relevance to HR. There's a committee, the TC 260, that is the Technical Committee 260 HR Management. That's the dedicated group that, develop this evidence-based HR standards. And it, like I said, every standard has its own HR experts. Its own experts. So for TC 260, it has its own global HR experts that come together from all around the world. Of which, like I said, here in Nigeria, SON is a representative. I'm proud to be also sitting on the National Mirror Technical Committee, for the HR management. And that's also the committee that relates with the same ISO TC 260 on a global scale. So it brings in so many things, and we have over 30 standards actually, and 7 are underway. And this ISO 30414 is currently undergoing a review. And within the next 12 to 24 months, a new one should be replacing the ISO 30414. Not new that will replace it totally. It will still have, some of the metrics in there, but it will have some additions and some refinement. So let's look out for that. So, but in the meantime, this is what is available, the ISO 30414. There's one that is underway. So the world of HR is massive. Dr. Orlando has described it, has shared with us, what's sort of the pains and gains are, and how, ISO standards help alleviate, that roadblock or those hurdles or those pains that, we go through. And if we understand what ISO HR standards can provide and help you at work, you would really come to terms with a number of those standards. So the call here, and I echo it with Dr. Orlando, is that look, beyond our SHRM, our HRCI, our CIPD, and all the very nice international professional HR bodies that we're associated with, we should go beyond that and relate with ISO HR standards. That is the message here, okay? So, and all of them have a lot in common. They help with the alignment of organizational goals, employee branding, continuous improvement. Dr. Orlando has said quite a lot. ESG, CDG, that's sustainable development goals, risk mitigation, so many things, best practice, you know. Now, for us to have an underpinning knowledge and appreciation of human capital reporting, I just want us to take a rare view of how human capital started. It started from Adam Smith. You know, it was first conceived by him in The Wealth of Nations. You know, it highlighted how skills and knowledge, you know, impact on productivity. You know, how intellectual capital comes in there. So that is, you know, how human capital was sort of conceived, you know, since 1770s, it has been around. So the economists discovered this concept, you know, from 1770 all the way to 1960. So we had other economists like Theodore Schultz to Gary Baker, you know, they all, you know, further revolutionized the concept and brought it, you know, to the workplace, all right? And then in the 1980s, that concept, human capital, began to gain traction, and human capital was seen as an organizational asset, not just a liability or a burden or just workers. So people were now seeing beyond just statistics of workers that they have or headcounts, right? They were now beginning to see, okay, what value is the workforce bringing? You know, so some metrics started coming in some reports, and then there was a financial downturn in 2000. So, of course, there was a massive demand for, look, we need to know, you know, what's going on. I mean, clearly, it highlighted the weakness in financial reporting because human capital was absent, you know. So a lot is being said about financial reporting, but nothing about human capital reporting. And then the demand for transparency increased. Then investors and regulators with moral compass were like, look, we need to know, you need to disclose more about human capital. We need to know how you're treating human capital, what value they are providing, and what's their welfare like, okay? So in 2011, the Technical Committee 260 was born. You know, that's how they came together in ISO to create that committee. In 2015, there was more push, you know, so now that ISO had come together to have a dedicated group called the TC260, their work was just on HR, period. That is what it is. So please, like Dr. Orlando said, after this session, Google it up, you know, and you will find out that there's a lot on ISO website. You know, it's massive. If you just type TC260 ISO, you'll find out that there's a lot, you know, that you can learn from. We just don't have that time to take you through it. But in fact, ISO has done a good justice there of giving you very simple introductions of what the TC260 is all about. There's a video clip there. Click on it and it will talk you through it. So in 2018, ISO 30414 came to light. That was the first standard of its kind called Human Capital Reporting on Internal and External Reporting. There's nothing of such prior to now. And up till now, we still don't have a dedicated standard that helps us use metrics to provide reports that will speak to internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, okay? So there was the rise of ESG investing. So the SEC in the US introduced requirements for disclosure. They were very firm, they made it mandatory, and they wanted to see more ESG reporting and disclosures. And that just caught on like, you know, a wildfire. I mean, many organizations and other regions of the world started catching on, like EU, you know, it came into force by January 2020. So a lot was going on and has been going on and will continue to go on. And even SEC here in Nigeria is very big on ESG reporting and disclosures. When you open your financial statement of your organization, you'll see this, you know, disclosure, material disclosure, and you have to report on, you know, the diversity as well, the ratio of, you know, the genders that you have in your organization, the count, you know, how many, you know, so it's a disclosure that, you know, investors and regulators felt they need to know, all right? And the future outlook is that we see that people analytics will really drive the use of ISO 30414. So all those other metrics that we have that ISO 30414 still has, the difference here is that it has undergone rigorous research to come together to bring something that, will be more meaningful, derives more insight, is more evidence-based, okay? So it's not groundbreakingly new, all the things that you're familiar with, like time to fill, but with ISO, it is clear. If you're familiar with ISO standards or international standards, you will know that a lot of work has gone into it. And when you are able to speak to, your reports and you are standing on good authority with credible insights, by ISO, then you have the full attention of your stakeholder. They know it's not just some fancy metrics that you picked up from Google or some, other vendors or, some other organizations or groups of people that just come up with metrics. No, it has already gone through that test. So you don't need to go too far. Just work with these metrics that, ISO 30414 provides. Right. So the background, okay, is an international standard like, we've just been discussing, but it's specific. It provides the guidelines for internal and external human capital reporting. And it's just to communicate the human capital that, your organization brings or has, and you want to quantify and qualify it in your report. So it helps you to standardize your reporting. It helps you with decision making, your stakeholders. And like you mentioned, when we asked what are your HR challenges, the biggest. A lot of you mentioned recruitment, engagement, reporting, analytics, and so much. And with this, the purpose, will address those concerns that you've raised. My friend that mentioned stressful, ISO 30414 will wipe away that stress for you. Okay. So again, ISO 30414 went through this same process. So there's no standard that doesn't go through it. That's why I want you to be proud of this ISO framework and any other ISO that you come across. They all go through this. There are experts that see them, there are ISO members that are involved, and then the secretariat, is also involved. All right. So you will rest assured that you have a very, very formidable framework to work with. Now, the benefits are numerous, but just to compartmentalize them, it enhances the HR process. It supports, the engagement, the experience that, some of us had raised as concerns or as issues or as challenges. It helps to provide a better interpretation from the non-financial returns from human capital investments. It is transparent, it helps to provide clear data for you to report, for you to analyze and report. And then, of course, the use of this data helps to provide, an organizational value that is comparable. Comparable in the sense that you can measure things month on month, even week on week, month on month, quarter on quarter, and year on year. And then if you have subsidiaries and you're an international organization, you have locations or regions, you can still use this framework or standards to help you ascertain, for comparison's sake, how are you faring in different human capital areas, which we'll be delving into very shortly. This is the content, okay? If you go to ISO 30414 on the ISO website, there's an online version that shows you, though limited, because you'll have to purchase it, there's an online version that is available, and it shows the different aspects or content of this framework. So it has the scope, just like most, in fact, all other ISO standards. It starts with the scope, the normative references, the T&D, and then further down. So, but for ISO 30414, it jumps straight to the issue, human capital reporting process. So it gives you a general background. What are those guiding principles? The stakeholders that you're making this report for, the kind of tools, the procedures, the way of collecting data, your reporting structure. Is it internal? Is it external? And then for comparability's sake, you have to also consider that. Then risk management, like all other ISO standards, risk is a big deal. You need to be able to assess it, mitigate it, and learn from it. So there are 11 human capital areas. We'll delve into them, from compliance and ethics all the way to workforce availability. Those are the reporting areas. So we'll see them very shortly, and we'll discuss briefly on the metrics. I'm also being mindful of time so that I can allow you to ask questions and also be able to assimilate all that we're sharing with you today. So the framework is quite vast, but is very clear and straightforward. Everything has series of levels. There's the macro level, which has to do with the global regulations, the SECs, the IOSCOs, the national laws within, organizations. And the meso level, you have the private sector, public sector, or the NGO, depending on what kind of organization you have or you're working in. And then the micro level, that's your internal, governance and the strategic makeup of your organization. So they all have a way of influencing largely, and to a certain extent, if it's your organizational culture or strategic composition, it guides your human capital reporting. Even prior to now that we're discussing about HCR, these things have informed how you write your reports. Globally, we're talking about ESG, we're talking about SDG, national laws. We're looking at so many things that pertain to national laws and being compliant even with the labor laws. So we have to be conversant with what is going on with labor laws, here in Nigeria, or wherever you are connecting with us today. And in terms of the meso level, again, depending on your organization, is it private, public, is it an NGO? And then that micro level, which is relevant to your organization internally. All these things before now, speaking to you about HCR, ISO 30414, formed your report in one way or the other. But now with ISO 30414, there are clear areas that ISO has defined and said, look, these are the areas that we believe very strongly will help you in providing enough report to your various stakeholders, whether you're a large corporation or an SME. It is flexible enough for you to determine what type of human capital area and the associated metrics that you want to provide your reports to. Then we have it distilling down to these stakeholders. So on my left side of the screen, we have the internal stakeholders. They receive the report on human capital risk, the turnover, the performance, the strategy fit, the conduct, so the internal stakeholders there are the employees, the management, of course, your board, so for the external, you have the investors. And this HCR helps to provide data on, performance, compliance. For regulators, it deals with compliance, of course. They are very particular about compliance. NGX, SEC here in Nigeria are very, very particular about compliance when you're filing, your reports and then preparing for the financial statements of your organization. For the public, they want to know, how transparent are you? How compliant are you with sustainability? How is your business impacting on the community? So the ESG and the S side, social side of it, comes into play. People want to know, how are you dealing with that side of it? Are you conscious of social welfare, the community, people? What kind of culture do you have in the organization? And the public, they just want to know, how transparent are you? How accountable are you to the things that you say you're doing? Do you walk the talk? So there's a lot that this framework provides us, and this is just to help unravel the importance of human capital reporting, as it were. But this now brings or drives home the point that with ISO, it even helps to transparently and clearly help you see the benefits. Now, the reportable areas, there are 11. Compliance and ethics is about legal compliance, ethical integrity, having that moral compass. Costs. This includes training, salaries, benefits, expenses around human capital. Diversity, the different demographics, the gender, the people with disability. And for me, I advocate for you to have, if you're not already doing that, to have even demographics around the generational mix in your organization. Is a big deal. So you may just know it, but it's good to also document it and monitor to see what is the makeup of your workforce. Do you have more of the Gen Zs, the millennials, the Gen Ys, the baby boomers, and who else is in your mix? Okay, that helps to determine the culture. That helps to determine the kind of training you provide. And then that also helps to determine, the expectations from them, the level of experience and engagement that you want to have with them. Leadership, that is a big deal. That's they say that they set the tone from the top. How effective is the leadership? If truly leadership sets the tone from the top, how effective are they? Organizational culture, that feeds right off from leadership, because it's about the beliefs, the collective behavior, that defines how we interact and what we want to project as an organization internally and externally. Occupational health, safety, and well-being. That's just basically about the health and safety of employees, and these, of course, including the psychological health of employees. Productivity, it looks at things like the efficiency, effectiveness, the human capital ROI. Okay, so you will be able to produce reports that speaks to that. So it's not just the financial controllers or your performance management person or your strategist that comes to talk about the employee productivity. As a human capital management professional or as an HR professional, you should be able to speak to the ROI on human capital. Recruitment, mobility, and turnover. In fact, that is the biggest area. It has like 14 metrics there. It has 14 metrics in under recruitment. Well, yeah, 14. Then skills and capabilities. That's the proficiency, the competency of the workforce. Succession planning is key. You want to know that there's a good succession management structure in place. Who's ready to fill in a position if someone opts and leaves, or for any other reason, the person is no longer in the organization? What happens? Identify your key man risk. What happens? How is it going to disrupt the department or even the organization? So these are things that you should anticipate and prepare for. Workforce availability, that relates to the entire workforce's available time in the organization. So we'll talk about that on the next slide. Just bear with me. It's a bit loaded. I was trying to just condense the slides, but this is just how you can relate with it to the ELC. That's the employee life cycle. Typically, most employee life cycles have 5 to 7. This is CIPD based. It has the attraction, the recruitment, onboarding, development, retention, exit, alumni. Some, organizations have alumni, some don't. They just stop at exit or offboarding. But by and large, between 5 to 7 employee life cycles are available in organizations for HR professionals that really, pay attention to these different stages of the employee life cycle. Now, if you want to relate it to the reportable areas that we just discussed, for attraction, diversity, you want to be able to attract a diverse group of crop of staff. For recruitment, you want to look at the cost per hire, for example. Onboarding, you want to look at, okay, if we're onboarding new recruits, they have to be familiar with our code of conduct. They have to be familiar with other policies around it. For development, productivity, you want to see in terms of productivity, how productive, and how they impact on the EBITDA or the ROI of the organization. So there are metrics around that. Then retention, you want to look at that. So the reportable area there is leadership and exit, succession planning. We just talked about it. So now, if you look to the right of my screen, I just break down, more in examples that, okay, attracting a diverse and skilled workforce, of course, requires being on top of your game with employer branding. All right. And the reportable area there is diversity, as I mentioned. If we look at the productivity area, if you want to report it, if you relate it to the ELC, you'll be looking at things to enhance the employee skills. We're talking a lot about reskilling and upskilling. WEF just recently, emphasized the need for that. But prior to WEF publishing an article around it, we've always known that reskilling and upskilling our workforce is very necessary. But sometimes, it just drives home the point when organizations like WEF mention it, so it's something that we need to pay attention to. And if we look at things like the organizational culture, that is a big deal. Is it a toxic environment? Positive relationships really matter for employees. So a reportable area when you're looking at it from that perspective on HCR is the organizational culture. And if you're looking at it from the ELC, you're looking at what you will do to maintain a positive relationship with staff. So now, right under the tire, that's the life cycle, or even the road, as it were, you'll see the 11 human capital areas. So if we pick, for example, the first one, which is on compliance, there are metrics around the number of grievances that have been filed, the disputes that have been resolved. Each of them give you an overview of the kind of metrics, that they all specifically help you analyze and report. For costs, is about workforce costs, the hiring, the turnover. For diversity, is about how diverse is the organization, gender, disability, generational mix, okay, leadership, span of control, organizational culture. You look at things about engagement, satisfaction. So you refer to your survey. So surveys that you've been running annually, you look at that. What has been the feedback concerning engagement? Because you can have an engaged workforce, but it's possible they may not be committed. They could be committed. They could possibly not be satisfied. So you have to run a number of surveys to determine the engagement level, the satisfaction level, and the commitment level. So all those things matter because the outcome, might not always be same, pari passu, or relatable. They may differ, and you need to pay attention to that pattern, that trend that is forming. And then we talk about occupational health and safety. So injury, lost time, occupational accidents or hazards. Are you recording that? So these are things that you need to pay attention to. Productivity, EBITDA. How do you relate with that? The ROI for recruitment is in fact, I noticed that it was one of the most mentioned areas of challenges for HR professionals, because it takes so much effort to fill a vacancy and it takes so much time. So you want to know, like, okay, the time to fill. Like I said, so these are not groundbreakingly new metrics, but guess what? ISO has provided a very clear series of metrics that relate to these different human capital areas and also made it more evidence-based, and having undergone the rigorous research, as I mentioned, it makes it clear that, look, there's a formula to apply. So yes, it may not be too different from what you may already be familiar with, but the difference here stands in how evidence-based it is and how it has been developed by ISO. Now, if we jump onto skills and capabilities, we look at the training costs, the training hours, participation rate. So there'll be things that will be new to you when you delve deeper into these metrics and start generating your analytics around it and generating your reports around it. Succession plan, that's the next one. It's about the effectiveness rate, the coverage rate, the readiness rate. So it helps you just structure things. So if we're doing things in the past with our HR dashboards, in different spreadsheets or in different folders, this helps to bring everything in one place, a central focal point for you to be able to relate with the different human capital areas, especially when you're relating to the ELC as well. So you are able to now just have one clear dashboard that has all these things, all right? And then the workforce, you want to know the absenteeism rate, the head count, and things like that. So it's beauty stands in how flexible it is and how easy it is to relate with it because the metrics are quite clear. The formula is also quite clear for the different metrics. There are 58 metrics, but it's not to say that we are going to use all 58 metrics. No, it depends on the relevance to your organization or your industry or your business. It's universal across sectors and regions. It's quite flexible, it's quite adaptable. It allows for it to be easily integrated into your existing HR dashboards that you have. It's applicable across different organizational setups, whether it's a decentralized one, it is a metrics, it is public, NGO, name it. Then the internal and external benefits, because it has been specifically curated for internal and external reporting, this makes it very clear for you to distinguish what aspect of your report you want to disclose internally and what aspect of your report you want to disclose externally. And then depending on your organization, the size, it also helps you determine which area you should report. So it's just a framework, it's a guideline, it helps. So rather than doing things just arbitrarily or just in a haphazard way, this provides structure and transparency and is evidence-based. Okay, and then of course, it's compatible with other ISO standards. Even with ISO 9001, this is compatible with it. Okay, So it supports that integration, even current ESG reporting frameworks that we have, you know, GRI, name it, it's quite flexible. The scope and applicability. I'm looking at my time. I haven't seen any hint yet, so I don't know if I should pause now and ask questions or just wrap up. I just have a few more slides. I'm just making sure that we're all together.
Just, please go ahead. I'm sure.
Okay.
So everybody, please just note your questions. Just start to scribble them. I can't answer your questions. I'm sorry. I don't think I have enough experience and knowledge to do that. So everybody, please just scribble your questions. She'll spend the next maybe I suppose 5-10 minutes, and then she'll take all our questions, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you. Please go ahead, man. Just round up. Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just touching base and making sure we're all connected. So the scope and applicability of the standard, there are a number of beneficiaries and stakeholders like we saw earlier, internally and externally. And as we have seen, you can relate with it from a private sector perspective, from a public sector, even from an NGO. Now, if we pick private sector, for example, their employees that are internal stakeholders, the HR department, management or leadership, or your board of directors. Those are the type of internal stakeholders. Examples of the external: investors, regulators, customers. Even if you go to public sector, it's the same thing, especially the internal is quite similar, but we'll see some examples. I'll just pick one. I won't go into too many of them so that we have time for Q&A. Same thing with NGO. So the external, you identify who your external stakeholders are: the donors, the beneficiaries of your services, your regulatory bodies, your suppliers, your vendors, your partner organizations, you know. So let us look at one example. Assuming this is the yellow network, okay, and happens to be named MTN, a coincidence. All right. The internal stakeholder, as we saw, employees, HR department, management, leadership, your board of directors. For the board of directors, they oversee governance. That's the description of what they do. That's their role, right? They assess or review risk or are given feedback on risk for them to determine the next course of action or investment or otherwise what the decision they need to take. It helps them with strategic planning and thinking. The benefit, if you're using ISO 3044, is that it standardizes the human capital report. It enables better governance and risk management. Now let's take customers, the users of this yellow network. How ISO 3044 benefits them is that it improves customer service and network reliability. Yes, in the sense that when you do the reports or you do your analytics around employee engagement, compliance, and things like that, everything that we do at the back end in HR dovetails to the front end, and it's boom in front of the customer, boom in the experience of the customer. So it helps us to stay focused and aligned with the corporate goals of the organization, not to be working in isolation and allowing, for example, certain departments to just relate with the customers. No, a lot starts from the HR department. As we'll see shortly, I call it the situation room because that's where everything goes on. Okay, so another example in the public sector is NERC, for example. I'll just pick one example. For example, the external stakeholder, suppliers, vendors, and contractors. Their role there is that they supply goods and services, right? Now, the benefits from ISO 3044 when you do your analytics based on those metrics and the human capital areas that relates to it is that it gives a more enriching experience that is ethical, that drives more ethical procurement practices, because you have a well-managed human capital, because you're checking to see are people compliant, your code of conduct, all those things come in. So what used to be fragmented and afar or distant from your focus brings it all into play for you to see end to end that, okay, at the back end, this is what I'm churning the data for, but I want to see the impact at the end of the day to a particular stakeholder, whether it's the customer, the vendor, the investor, the regulator, name it. It just helps to streamline a common language, which is your data that you're relating with. Same thing with an NGO, you know, the partner organizations, for example. So there's so much. Let me just move on quickly to an example of recruitment. I've noticed that recruitment was one of the most mentioned challenges. ISO 3044 can help you because it gives you a data-driven analysis report that helps you to be better prepared to attract and retain the right talent, because it works in a structured way. Now, if we look at your tracking recruitment metrics, that's where you get it from. Okay, your time to hire, your cost per hire, quality of hire. So the metrics around quality of hire, which helps organizations to enhance the whole recruitment process. The action there is, it will help you to now regularly monitor and adjust strategies based on these metrics. So if you look at the tracking metrics, there's the quality of hire, there's time to hire, there's cost per hire, and it dovetails to helping you to monitor and analyze these metrics, identify the bottlenecks, and then refine your strategies around your recruitment practices, especially when you're attracting, when you're selecting the talents that you want to have in your organization. If you move on to, other areas of the recruitment process, like, evaluating the sources, like the job boards, the LinkedIn, the Jobberman, the referrals, you track that. You want to identify the most effective source. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Jobberman? Is it Indeed? Is it just referral? Okay, so then you look at all these areas of your sources and then track them. So you track how they're performing, you identify which is the most effective, and then you just focus on what works for you. Again, in the recruitment process, if you integrate ISO 30414, it helps you to measure the fitness for purpose of the candidate. What are the metrics that relate to retention, and helps you to assess, the success of your recruitment exercise. So you need to now implement a post-hire evaluation. So you now look at the job description or the position description or the hiring criteria or even the assessments that you administer. Do you administer assessments? Is it a one-size-fits-all? Now you might need to review it. So for certain categories of staff, you need to make it different so that it's more meaningful and you'll be able to extract the kind of information and comfort you want to draw that, yes, this hire is a good fit. So those things coming. So you now also want to assess even the existing employee satisfaction so that okay, if currently this is the outcome of the satisfaction survey, how else can I improve attracting people that will fit well with the existing workforce? So you look at the performance, you look at the retention rate that you have. And if you look at, we talk a lot about DEIB, it's key. You want to have a very diverse and dynamic workforce because that's where innovation thrives. That's where it sparks a lot of creativity. So you monitor the diversity of your workforce. And then you look at those diversity statistics, you track it, and then you ensure that you have diversity goals that you want to achieve quarterly, yearly. Then the retention of your top talent, you come to that. It's part of your recruitment exercise. It doesn't just stop after giving or issuing the offer letter. There's a lot that goes on even post-recruitment until they settle in and integrate into your company's culture and they're able to deliver what they have promised to. It's mutual. It can never be one-sided that once you hire a talent that you leave them on their own. You have to provide an enabling environment for them to thrive. It is a dual responsibility. The employer has that responsibility, just as the employee or talent has that responsibility to deliver what they said they can do. But the environment has to be enabling. Okay, so that you're able to keep them for longer. And if they're leaving, are you checking their interview, exit interview? Is it just a checkbox? So you need to review the exit interview data that you're looking at. So the metrics around that, the ISO 30414 helps us to shine more light on, to analyze the exit data, the recruitment processes, and then focus on, retention. Because at the end of the day, we want to be seen as, the best employer or the best place to work. We want to feature as one of those top organizations that people naturally want to come to work. Cost efficiency, you want to track the cost per hire. And yet you need to balance the effectiveness and the cost efficiency to that effect. So what are those strategies that you have in place? The recruitment costs, you need to monitor costs. So yes, as much as you want to hire the best talent as much as possible, you also need to look at the cost of hiring that talent. You need to be able to justify it. There are metrics around that help you look at that, like the human capital ROI or the EBITDA and the justification you want to make for hiring someone on a higher grade, and then the enabling environment or the roadmap that you want this talent to ensure they deliver on what they've promised to. Okay. So yes, I'm almost wrapping up. This is just the HR process, HCR process. Their guiding principles, we saw that earlier in the content. The stakeholder identification, as I mentioned, you need to determine which stakeholders you want to produce the report for. It's not just a one size fits all. Otherwise, it will just be information overload. So you need to curate your report specifically for the audience or the stakeholder that you want them to take a decision or for them to draw the comfort that they're looking for. The reporting structure. So you need to distinguish, between the internal and external. The risk management, that's key. Identify the opportunities and recommend interventions. Quantitative metrics. That's one thing that ISO 30414, it's quite quantitative driven as well. So there are a lot of metrics that you can select and then apply accordingly, depending on the kind of report or the kind of information that you want to provide. Your reporting documents, HR reports, annual reports, sustainability reports, corporate social responsibility reports. The frequency of your reporting, how is it? Is it quarterly? Is it biannual? Is it annual? So you set intervals on, the milestones you want to achieve or the impact you want to achieve from, your analysis. So yes, we're almost wrapping up in another 3 to 5 minutes. ISO 30414 is not just limited to human capital reporting. It also helps with human capital disclosure. Like I mentioned in the beginning, when your financial statement provides information about the composition of your workforce, male, female, the opening counts, the closing counts, the leadership diversity and things like that, that's disclosure. It's not reporting. But guess what? It starts from human capital reporting, where you report on, the human capital, and then you provide information on financial statement that can be disclosed to the concerned stakeholders. So the difference here is that, for HCR, it's broader. For HCD, it's more specific, usually a mandatory disclosure that SEC would require you to do, NGX and, the likes. It's often voluntary for HCR because most of it is internal and external, but for HCD, it's usually your investors, your regulators, and it's more mandatory. So ISO 30414 provides that. Now, the ecosystem, this is it. If we're looking at the kind of stakeholders, the board, the investors, C-suite, employees, the communities, this is just a framework or the ecosystem of how both actually work hand in hand. So while you're generating your HCR, there are aspects of it that you can draw to provide, the human capital disclosure for the targeted audience or the stakeholder. Like we have seen for regulators, is usually about compliance, community, the social impact. So, they want to see from that HCR perspective. Okay, so it differs for different stakeholders. Then the situation room, as I mentioned, yes, this is where, HCR helps you appreciate your role. Data quality and integrity is your responsibility. Reporting responsibility is yours. System responsibility is yours. Resource and content, interpretation, stakeholder engagement, continuous improvement. Those are your roles. The responsibilities here, if I pick system responsibility, for example, you oversee systems for data collection, storage, functionality, and reliability. So if you're going to look at it from the HCR perspective, your HRIS, what software are you using? How are you maintaining the information? Is it clean? Is your data clean? Is your HR dashboard clean as well? Is your software clean? Whatever software that you're using, if you're not using Excel. And then HCD, how secure is it? How safe is it? If we pick on continuous improvement, for example, your role there is to make sure you're continuously improving, on the entire reports. So you're continuously updating your human capital reporting to ensure that it reflects best practices. How? By incorporating ISO 30414 and not just the fancy metrics that we pick up from Google. An example of how the HCR work is that updating internal health and safety metrics. ISO 30414 has such metrics. If it's for human capital disclosure, adapting disclosures to meet new external regulatory requirements, that's where, HCD comes in. So the situation room is intense, your department, the HR, you need to thank them because it's a calling. There's not anybody that can handle HR. It takes a lot of brains, brilliance, boldness to be able to now start confronting that elephant in the boardroom, okay? But with this, you're covered. So we're wrapping up. Okay, so we broke the ice, we built a snowman, but I just want to recap and just call it a wrap. So I'll quickly, this is I think the last slide actually, yeah, and then just the conclusion. I will quickly show the QR code. It's just for me to wrap up. Here it is on our screen. Please scan it with your device or just type it in another web browser, slides.com 9MCZL, or just scan it. So if I can just have a couple of people join in, then I can just proceed. I just have about 3 slides. It's just even the conclusion, really. Please confirm you can see it and you are scanning the QR code, and then we just call it a wrap. Hello. Hey, Esther, lovely. Karina, Farida, nice. Oh, yeah, there are ladies in the house, finally. Richmond, okay, interesting. Oh, Oyin, why? Any more? If I can just have about 10 more, 3 more, just about 10, 12 people, that's fine. It's just for us to, recap and call it a wrap. Okay, so we're going to continue so that we will close very shortly. Let me close this so that you can see it on your screen. No one got that. It's actually echo. You communicate, but you cannot respond. Sorry, but you can only respond when addressed. It's actually echo. So not to worry. Let's just move to the next question. This time around is just to check that you have been able to understand the purpose of ISO 30414. Just one respondent. Yay! Everyone got that. Fantastic. Whoa. Loving this, loving this. That's nice. Okay, so we'll now just move to conclusion. Finally, we're touching down. ISO 30414 is the key to unlocking HR success in your organizations because it provides a very clear structure for transparency, for standardizing your human capital reporting that you're currently doing. So you're not doing anything different, but it's just making it more standardized, making it more transparent, and measurable, comparable, and, be able to assess the HR key human capital areas more effectively. It helps to, go beyond the traditional financial reporting to incorporate human capital analytics into the business strategy, because now it will help you to, when you're preparing for your next board report or management report, to further align your own report with the organizational goals, with the corporate goals. So you're not doing your report in isolation and just coming to talk about you want to promote staff. No, you would be able to now have a very loud voice that will have an impact, in a justifiable way based on the metrics that you have. So it helps you to also standardize the metrics for your, department, ensuring that your organization can capture key data that are very insightful, that helps with the composition of the workforce, the diversity of the workforce, how engaged are they, how productive, their well-being, turnover, so many things like we've seen, the 11 human capital areas, and altogether they bring about 58 metrics. So you have more than enough, to be able to do so much to, make it a success, your reporting. Now, the call to action here, we mentioned it earlier, is to, stay competitive in this data-driven world, where a lot is going on people analytics, but ISO 30414 will help, in helping you drive your analytics to a greater level, to an international standard. So by implementing it, it will, even you as the HR professional, gives you a better insight to decision making, workforce alignment, and stronger business outcomes. So that's it. I'm sure this is the area for questions and answers. Summarize the things you learned from the webinar. Identify 2 ways you will apply them when you get back to the office. And then one question that still seems to be a concern for you. So let there be light. Let us ask, let us engage, let us get to unravel some of the mysteries that we are relating with. So yeah, thank you very much. That's a QR code that takes you to my LinkedIn page and my website as well, ifaconsulting.co. We offer certification, diagnostic audit, and advisory services on human capital reporting and disclosure. We are the strategic partner of HR Metrics in Africa, so we are committed to advancing human capital transparency and best practices. So the QR code here is what will take you to IFA Consulting. If you just type IFA Consulting, .co, it will take you to the website. So thank you very much. These are just some sources for you to go through. So yeah, merci beaucoup.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Orlando,
Thank you.
OTY,
Thank you.
over to you.
Right. Thank you very much. I mean, I can't say enough thank you as it is. I would also come for personal coaching from you. I'll learn how to speak professionally like you. I'll stay composed and hopefully I'll get to be able to address international audiences just like you get to do as it is. So once again, thank you very much for your time. So because we are having some trouble with the chat room, so I'm just going to take about 3 or 4 persons. Please, can you just switch on your mic very quickly? And apart from some of these questions that are on the screen, can you, if you've got any additional question or if you want to answer any of these questions that are on the screen, can you just switch on your mic and please go for it. Please go ahead.
City, what does it mean?
Okay. Right, please go ahead. City. Anybody?
Okay.
Expect? Right, please go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this session. My name is Olayinka. Thank you so much for this opening session. This is Aisha. I'm a keen follower of your post on LinkedIn. All right. My question is just a question I want to ask around benchmarking. So after going through
this over 300 pages, we'll send it as happy.
Can you hear me?
There's somebody that is that is please speaking. Email, I mean. Oh God, can you hear me? Mute. Okay, please. You muted everybody. Right. Okay, who was that? Please go ahead, sir. Thank you.
All right. So it's around benchmarking. So I understand maybe sometimes you want to benchmark. You look at the likely industries you belong to know whatever their own data is also speaking. So, but most time the challenges has always been that for you to get their own data, for you to benchmark it with your, let's assume maybe retention rate now. So you want to get the retention rate of your competitors so that you can benchmark it with what you currently have in your organization, whether you are improving or something like that. So there is always a challenge to that. So my question is, for the ISO 30414, is there any room for like a kind of benchmarking for each of these human metric areas? Or and what advice do you give in terms of benchmarking when in a situation whereby we have challenges getting data from the competitors? So do you think we can just internally, we should set up a benchmark to meet, or I don't think maybe you try to understand what I'm saying. So I'm just speaking from the range of benchmarking.
I think your question is clear, actually. Thank you very much for that. I think your question is clear, so I'm sure she's noted it. This is a challenge across many areas, not just HR. People are looking for who do we benchmark with against and what do we benchmark against. So she's taking note of that so that we can just pile all the questions and then she can just answer everything at once. So who else is the next person? Please go ahead. Thank you very much for that, the last speaker. Next person, go ahead.
I'm here. So I'm Richmond. Richmond Inquiry.
Hello, Richmond. Go ahead.
Yes. Orlando, how are you?
You're very well, sir.
We once spoke. We'll continue from here.
Right.
Okay, so mine is an addition. choosing any of the metrics in the ISO regulation, we would always have to bear in mind the organization's strategy. You need to align. You don't just choose any metric. That is an addition. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Richmond. I'm sure Aisha would also probably shed some light on that, but I mean, that's an excellent addition. You can't just pick a metric and then start to worry about it if it doesn't really contribute to anything that is important to strategic to the organization in itself. Thank you, and I'm sure she will also share her thoughts. Can I take three more very quickly? Can I take about three more very quickly? Please go ahead. Anybody? Anybody else? I mean, we've got almost 100 people on the call. I mean, even in some of the rooms, I know that at least I know about 3 rooms where we have about 5 or 6 people that are all gathered around their computer or in the boardroom, so to speak. So, is there any other person that has got a question on the call? I have a question, right? So, my question is around once again. HR dashboards, right? So the assumption is we've got also some metrics, maybe 50, 60 of them. Maybe we will prioritize some of them. What exactly is the challenge whereby most organizations just struggle to have an appropriate HR dashboard? Is it a process problem? Is it a people problem? Or is it a technology problem? So I would also like you to answer that. And then somebody also sent me something. I don't know why the person is not sending it to you, but the person shared it with me directly. And then the person said that what are your thoughts with regards to diversity and inclusion, DEI, in especially in Africa? Is it working? Are we just playing lip service to it, or this is something that organizations are really looking into as it is? So please, Aisha, please also take that into consideration. And the last one that somebody else also shared with me is something around culture. That what exact I mean, culture, what's that thing they say? They say culture eats strategy for breakfast. Sometimes they'll say it's a process for lunch, strategy for lunch. Culture eats everything for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is what it is, I like to say. And somebody is asking me that what exactly are some of your recommendations with regards to how organizations can deal with culture. And then lastly, so one of my employees said, "How can we be like you, Aisha? How can we be a global expert like 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 you? Since you're like our collective mentor and even coach as of now. So please, I think you've got about 5 or 6 questions. I think you can go for it. Please go ahead, Aisha. Thank you very much."
Thank you for all these questions. Very relevant, very, very, very relevant. I've noted them down. There are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, and I will try and take them one by one. I'll start with the internal benchmarking. That was the first question. Okay, and for internal benchmarking, the standard, you have to start from somewhere. Okay, while you have, like I said, there are things that you're already doing with your dashboard. All right, keep it going. But now, if you want to go down the route of integrating this ISO 30414 and its associated metrics, you need to start from somewhere. And for me, my go-to is always Excel. I can never part with Excel, no matter how fancy they bring the, numerous softwares and things like that. I can't just part with Excel. So you have to start with Excel. In benchmarking, it does not directly provide, but it behoves it's upon you to generate the benchmarking criteria within your organization. So you're in control. Just like I said, you're the one in the situation room, you're in charge. The HR department has the most valuable and quantum data you can imagine in any organization. So you are, swimming in oil, put it that way. So data is your oil. All right. You have a whole big mine of gold that you're sitting on. So it's just for you to determine the criteria of the benchmarking areas that you want to consider within your organization. So you start internally. What it does, the HCR framework, is just it provides you with a guideline. And we have to, like I said, start internally before we start looking elsewhere. So if you start internally by looking at across departments, the different internal benchmark feedback that you're getting, depending on the kind of metrics that you're looking at. The cost per hire, is it to do with the audit, the finance, your HR department, like the different areas. So you start internal benchmarking. Charity begins at home. So your internal benchmarking starts at home with you. Then you now start looking at your bigger picture. If you have other subsidiaries you're responsible for, or other branches outside your HQ, you start looking at that. So you need to build it internally. Now for the external, that is why we're having this forum, because if we don't come together as experts to rub minds, to be able to say, look, I've got my data, this is what it's telling me, what does yours tell you, what is the feedback, what are you getting? We cannot get that external benchmark. So it has to start from somewhere. So if you're able to do yours, I do mine, Dr. Orlando does his, Richmond, does his, Fumilayo does hers, we'll get there. So we have to start from somewhere. But internally with ours, then we now start considering what other people are doing. Another area is financial statements of other organizations. There's a whole lot there. Don't take for granted that it's only your own financial statement that you're interested in. Trust me, there's so much. There's so much that is, captured in numerous organizations or company financial statements. So depending on your industry, if you're in banking, pick the top 5, start with them. Look at their financial statement and pay attention. It's a voluminous, document, but go through it and you will find that there are certain things that you can start picking. It's there. So that's another way of also capturing external benchmark that you want to start doing. So I hope I've been able to address that one. Thank you. So the next one is on aligning corporate goals. I actually said that during my presentation, that it's for you. And towards wrapping up, I mentioned that it's upon you to ensure that the metrics that you use aligns with the organization. And I did mention clearly that you won't just pick the whole 58 metrics. It's not possible. I wouldn't even advise that. You have to start. And I said it has to do with your industry. It has to do with your sector. It has to do with your business. Even has to do with your competition. So you look at what is relevant to your organization that you, the HR practitioner or the professional, wants to lay on the table for your stakeholders to take informed decision or draw comfort or gain an insight that they can take a decision upon. So yes, definitely it has to align, with the corporate goals of the organization. So even when you're doing your OKRs, this is the best, integration that you can have with ISO 304. So determine the kind of metrics that you want to pay attention to. When I started, I didn't use the whole 58 metrics. I'm still not using the whole 58 metrics. No, it's not possible. I mean, I wouldn't encourage that because you'll be all over the place. So it is what is relevant and what is, speaking to the corporate organization. So I would hope that I've further, how would I say, echoed what Richmond is saying, that it has to. There's no point embarking on integrating ISO 30414 or the metrics if you're not ready to align with the corporate organization. In fact, what I just captured something like when I first introduced it in my previous workplace. My introduction was simple. I was just mentioning that this report is compliant with the Human Capital Reporting Standards, ISO 30414, guidelines for internal and external human capital reporting sets out by the International Standards Organization. And once you have such a caption there, even if it's the board, they'll pay attention to you because you said something, International Standards Organization or International Organization, standards. So they would be interested. So because they want things that have good ratings, something that they can relate with, so something they can be associated with, something that, makes sense, like I said, is not just off Google. you're already saying, so you have the authority, full authority, and you have their full attention when you're talking about your numbers and your own reports, because you are now making it clear that you want to align the key human capital areas with, where the emphasis or the corporate goals are. So I hope I've been able to echo that and make that very clear, that it has to align with the corporate strategy. You have to make sure it does that. So it depends on you, the professional, that the points that you want to drive, the alignment that you want to drive, your industry, your business, your competition, your sector, and what you want to do differently to make an impact. So it has to be impactful. Then I'll move on to the HR dashboard. Yes, the HR dashboard, we have them. Okay, and it has so many things, so much information, but we have to be careful not to have information overload. That's why I said, yes, you will have that running, but with ISO 3014 and its associated metrics is for you to start with Excel. It's very simple. Just be able to start inputting the areas, the human capital areas, and the associated metrics that are relevant to your business, to your organization, to your corporate goals. So having the HR dashboard that you currently have will not in any way stop you from running with your ISO 3014. And the more you use the ISO 3014, the more relevance you will derive from it. Then you will now decide which of your metrics you want to prioritize, which of them that you want to even integrate with your current HR dashboard. So I would encourage that you run them separately for now. And because it's so easy to understand, it's not difficult. The metrics are not difficult at all. So it's something that you can start as a project on one hand, and then eventually look at them, critique them, and prioritize which ones that you want to pay attention to that will impact on the business, the corporate strategy of the organization. So I hope I've been able to address that as well. Then DEIB. Well, I guess it differs from organization to organization. For me, I'm a big fan of it. I'm an advocate of that. I believe very strongly in it. And what you need to do is to have your DEIB framework or guideline. I won't call it a policy because it's not mandatory. It is highly encouraged because your investor, your next talent that you want to hire, your customer, your regulator, your stakeholders that we've been discussing about, want to know how diverse is your workforce? What's the composition of your workforce? So it really matters that as HR professionals, that we are the ones in that situation room that bring to the table what will align more closely with the goals of the organization. So DEIB for me is something that is part of sustainability, is part of the ESG, the S, the social aspect of it. DEIB comes in there actually. So if you're looking at the DEIB, you're looking at what it stands for: diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. How do you want to do that? You start with a framework. That's how I started it. I developed a framework around it. I developed a guideline around it, so that it is clear that, we are open-minded, we want to see the diversity, we want to encourage inclusivity, we want everybody to feel, that they belong, in the organization. And that's where, for me, where the generational mix also comes in. I'm a big fan of that. I like to monitor the generational mix, and even for gender equality, I'm a big fan of that. And what I've done in the past is to alter the recruitment strategy, or rather prioritize the recruitment strategy to focus on women, because I realized that in some departments there were not women. There was no lady in some of the departments, and I made it a duty that no, we'll have to focus on prioritizing women. And by the time I left, or before I left, I was happy to see that every department had women. So it's you being intentional, it's you being bold, it's you being able to confront the elephant in the boardroom. There's nothing that stops you from, you're in control of the data. And that's why I need us as HR professionals to be more audacious, but professional in what we do. And we back it up by, our data to justify, our actions or what we're putting out there. for management to consider or for the board to consider. So if you feel that you've observed, and it's for you to anticipate or look at these things, that, you know, the mix in the organization is either there are more men, you want to introduce more women, then you make it, you know, a priority that, you know, in hiring in certain departments, you will prioritize, you know, recruiting women first. Okay, you look at the generational mix. Oh, we have a lot of baby boomers. We need to get in more Gen Zs. We need to get a balance. It depends on what your organization. So that is why that alignment is key for the organization. But you also have a say to let the organization know that this is the trend or this is the impact of certain decisions that can benefit the organization or otherwise. So sitting at that situation room in your department at the helms of affairs, you are already seeing what's ahead of you. And it's for you to really keep your eyes wide open and your ears wide open to the dynamics that are playing out in the business, in the industry, and, you know, the world as a whole. And that will take me to the fifth question, which was on, okay, I've already addressed the benchmark aspect of it. The global expert, well, very flattered, is basically to never get tired of learning. I mean, Dr. Orlando, don't look at him and think he's done. Have you seen his accolades and all the things that he has bagged with him? Anything that you can be interested in that will make you more useful, that will make you confident, that will make you relevant, go for it. The beauty of it is that there's so many things that are even free. We have communities that are willing to teach, mentor, coach. I'm available. Dr. Orlando is available, and so many people out there. That's the beauty of this forum. For us to connect, it's not just, you know, just for us to come and, you know, bore you with our slides and all of that. After this, we should connect. You know, we should connect with one another and, you know, get tips, advice, mentorship, coaching. We're here. So as an HR community, we need to do more. And guess what? The HR community in Nigeria is one of the biggest in Africa, if not the biggest. It's just that we are yet to get the numbers to confirm it. But for me, I think we're the biggest in Africa. And even in the world, we have a good portion of it because, pardon?
Yeah, I was just laughing. Just please go ahead. we have to be, we've got the highest population. So, I mean, yes. It just makes sense, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So even though we don't have confirmed figures, but honestly, I think we have, you know, the biggest, you know, in Africa. And it's vibrant. So we need to engage more. We need to even engage on the continental level. So I like the fact that we have people from Ghana, from Kenya. Let's connect. So don't mind that I said, oh, yes, Nigeria has the biggest community. But guess what? It's to our advantage, all of us. Because if we're able to be everywhere and connect with everywhere, share, exchange, network, then the HR community in Africa as a whole will stand united. So we won't be so fragmented and be doing things differently, and you get to your regions a different thing. But there's certain things that should be common in Africa that we want to stand for, that we want to support, that at the global level, this is what we are making loud and clear is important for our HR community or in our organizations or for our workforce. You know, so, and the call to action that we mentioned is, you know, ISO HR standards. Get familiar with those ISOs. They're over 30. You know, they're over 30. So I hope I've been able to answer or address your questions. I'm available. Absolutely. And please. Absolutely. Thank you.
It's a round of applause, a huge round of applause, a huge, everybody. I want you to please, a round of applause. If you want to switch on your videos, please switch on your videos. Everybody, please, if you don't mind, and just say a big thank you to Aisha. If I had to pay, I would have to take a loan from the World Bank to be able to, if I was going to pay for 1 hour of your keynote speech or your keynote address at some international stage, so to speak, right? Thank you very much. We can't thank you enough. We're truly grateful to you for offering your time. I mean, I've never even physically met you, and a big thank you also to Hafiz. I was outside of the country. I found you online because we also do quite a bit of work with this Standards Organization of Nigeria. I told Hafiz that so that I don't forget, Hafiz, just help me reach out to her, and he did, and that's why it is that you're here today, and there's no way I would have done. I couldn't have done half of what it is that you're able to do today. So we really thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the effort. I mean, we even look at the slides that you presented. It's obvious that you did take quite a quite a bit of an effort just to be able to put that together for this particular session. So once again, we thank you, and we just pray that God will reward you with global engagements as national and African and global engagements as it is. So once again, big thank you to you, Ma. I'm sure people will reach out to you on LinkedIn for all sorts of things as it is, and I'll also reach out to you personally. Thank you once again for your time as it is. Thank you, everyone. So as we bring this to a beautiful close today,
Orlando,
yes, please go ahead.
yes. So the presentation, so insightful. Aisha, please share your slides with us.
Yeah. Okay.
Ah, thank you.
So we have okay. Go ahead, Richmond.
So Aisha, how do we get it? Our emails? How do we share
No
our
problem.
emails with
Since you
you?
registered for the course, the team will
Oh
get
yeah,
back to you,
yeah.
Richmond.
All right.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right.
All right. I mean, we've had to implore the angels to speak with her so that we can share, because that's our personal collateral to be able to share it with you. But what I always say sometimes when people ask me for my slides is that I'm always happy to say, I said somebody created ChatGPT and Google, and we all use those platforms. So hey, if my slides will support you, then we'll do that. I'm sure she would also agree that we can share with you. So not a problem as it is. And once again, let me thank the team that's on my screen. The team in Ghana, the team in Nigeria, they are the ones that put these marketing campaigns together. A big thank you to them. Some of them are in Abuja, some of them are here in Lagos, some of them are there in Accra, and they drive all the marketing activities and all these webinars that we do. So let me say big thank you to all of them. As I said, next month I'll be doing something on the brand new ISO standard. It's never been done anywhere around the world. I'm privileged to be part of that subcommittee that does that technical committee that works on the ESG standard in alignment with the global reporting standard for ESG, GRI. We'll be doing this sometime next month. Most likely, we might change the date to Wednesday. And then we have this training class, which is also for corporate social responsibility, that will be happening next month in the month of February. So these are two important things. One of them is a free event. The other one is a paid event. And we have all sorts of things that are happening around the year, from audits to corporate governance and to many other things around this. We look forward to seeing you on some of our events. We look forward to staying in touch with all of you as it is. We've got all sorts of we're on all sorts of platforms, so you can stay in touch, because there's always value just being connected to people and just being connected to us. You're going to get a lot of freebies. If we had to charge for this session today, it'll cost people a lot of money. But I mean, we believe that some of the work we're proponents of SDG, so we have to do our own contribution as part of Goal 4 to the community and the world at large. So you can follow us. There's always some value that you're going to get just from working with us. So once again, thank you very much. Ms. Aisha, thank you very much for your time. There is a foundation cost that comes with the course. We will share the link, share the slides and every other thing. If you've registered for this event and you're here, you will definitely get a lot of those things from us. I believe there's also something around attendance cost organization. Somebody is going to come to audit us and they're going to ask for the feedback from all our webinars. So if you don't mind, as they share the link in the chat room, please fill it as it is. So once again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. God bless you. Have a beautiful month of February. Tomorrow is the 1st of February. Today is the last day of the month of January. I mean, just like yesterday it was 1st of January, and today it's pretty much the last day. And we wanted to do these two things yesterday for the SDG and today for the HR standards. We wanted to get these two things done very quickly before the end of this month of January. We had it as part of our objectives, and I'm happy and I'm glad that we've been able to do that as it is. So once again, thank you, Madam Aisha. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Have a great remaining part of your day and a beautiful February of the year 2025. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, thank you very much, madam. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.